From the red team to the gold unit channel members and everybody in between, welcome to the Amped Up Podcast, Friday, September 22nd, 2023. Salute! We got a packed, stacked, jacked show for you today. We're going to talk those that believe the professional wrestling business is booming, because every time they turn around, World Wrestling Entertainment is turning record profits. But what if in just one day, everything got flipped upside down and they lost a ton of money? Because that's what happened in just 24 hours. The announcement that Smackdown was leaving Fox to go to cable television and the USA Network, mixed with over 20 talents getting released, cut, fired in just hours. All of this transpiring yesterday sent a wallop, a WABAKA, to TKO Holdings, where WWE trades under, with the NYSE, New York Stock Exchange. Wait till you hear how much they lost and what it all means. And we are going to talk Vince McMahon possibly cashing out. A new report signals that Vince McMahon has once again set himself up perfectly to create the ultimate heist and run as if he just robbed the bank. We'll talk all about Vince McMahon and his exit from WWE possibly. We're also going to talk AEW. Grand Slam nearly hit a Grand Slam in the ratings, nearly clinching that 1 million mark, something it has not seen in many, many months. At the bare minimum, it hit a home run, and we're going to talk about it. Unfortunately, there's a flip side. That same number shows a declining trend that needs to be discussed. And on top of that, a lot of backlash for something that happened on Wednesday night. Like massive backlash. Once again, AEW hearing the cries of a sloppy shop. But it's more what happened with the referee in this match that has fans questioning, is there a better way to go about business? We'll discuss all of this. It's all coming up in a massive Amped Up Podcast for Friday, September 22nd, 2023. There's only 4 things left to do. Grab your coffees, lock in your earbuds, smash those ups, and let's get amplified! And before we catapult into some of these bigger stories, a couple of side notes. First and foremost, everybody can relax. As of the recording of this podcast, there has been no additional names added to the 20-plus names that were released and fired during the WWE cuts just yesterday. No new names. That's the good news. Full transparency. On the flip side, there's still plenty of hours left, so there's plenty of time that unfortunately more names will be added. Up until about 7 p.m. last night, names were still being added. So, but as of this recording, no new names to speak of, and sometimes no news is good news. Also, Smackdown tonight. John Cena is obviously promoted, marketed to appear. We're now hearing there's a chance he will be wrestling tonight. If that's the case, don't be shocked if it's a tag team match with everybody saying L.A. Knight. Yeah. So just don't be too shocked. We're hearing he could be wrestling tonight, and it looks like they're going to set something up with possibly L.A. Knight. Also tonight on SmackDown, a major championship match for the ladies. Challenger Asuka taking on champion Io Shirai, Io Sky. This is a match that should have been on a premium live event, PPV. because it deserves that type of care, that type of attention. When you put a match like this on TV, you obviously have to deal with the commercial breaks. And stemming from those commercial breaks, you alter the flow of the match. And then, of course, you have to deal with time constraints because you're on television. Constraints that you may have on PPV or PLE events, yes, but it's much more laxed. So putting this on TV, they're greatly handicapped, but because these are two consummate professionals that are, I believe, going to tear it up, as long as they give them the proper time and the proper care has gone into this match. What type of match do they want it to be? What finish do you have planned? Is it going to be fun? Is there a cliffhanger at the end of this thing? This has potential. Hopefully they go out and they do the deed, and I hope the company is backing them in this whole process. But this is a big match tonight. And again, if you're wondering why they're just putting this match on free TV, just like Miz and LA Knight, you thought that when they ran it back, Miz and LA Knight, they would put it at Fastlane. But no, you're having these matches because at the time, the deal with USA Network was not finalized. So they're really trying to pump these ratings up. You bring back John Cena. You surprise everybody with The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. You put together some decent PLE type matches. Matches that should be on these events. But instead you're getting it for free TV, right? They're trying to pop those ratings. And guess what? Last week they brought in 300,000 to 400,000 viewers back. The Rock, John Cena, LA Knight, and Miz, heavily promoted. They were able to do that. Now, I believe they're going to lose because you ain't got The Rock surprise now. Right? Everybody found out early and then they tuned in. Like, is The Rock going to be around during the show? I believe you're going to at least lose about 100,000 viewers, at least. But they could still pull high 2.4s. So we'll see. But that's why they're doing these type of matches on free TV. I'm just not a fan of it. Once in a blue moon, okay. But sometimes you get a championship match like this, you have to give it the proper care. You have to put it where it should be. Show that appreciation to these ladies. So that's a big Smackdown though, man. John Cena possibly wrestling tonight, and you have a big ladies championship match. The rest of the show, hey man, it's WWE. It could put you to sleep in the first 10 minutes, or you could, it could actually be somewhat enjoyable. You never know with SmackDown. It's always a mixed bag. Unlike Monday Night Raw, where you're just hoping, you're praying, you're wishing that you get something entertaining. That's your SmackDown notes. And the latest on any latest releases. So now let's get into some of the bigger stories, man. Let's keep it with WWE for now. Then I'll go over to AEW and a lot of backlash from Grand Slam. But some good news too, right? The number that they pulled, there's good in it, and then it tells a negative story as well. We'll talk about AEW in a few minutes. But WWE, right, there's this notion, and I've mentioned this several times in the past couple of months, just yesterday during a live stream. If you don't know, we put up 3 uploads yesterday on the channel. We did a whole podcast, and then I found out that Smackdown was, Fox gave it Das Boot, and it's going over to the USA Network. So I had to put up a breaking news 10-minute upload. Then 2 hours later, I put up the original Amped Up podcast. And then 2 hours after that, I had to do the live stream because of all the releases and that breaking news. So it was a packed day on the channel. So if you guys didn't know, if you didn't catch all 3 of the uploads, make sure you find time to do such. A lot of good information in each one of those uploads. But something I just mentioned in the last upload, which was the live stream, we talked about it, how a lot of fans believe that the wrestling business is truly booming because every time they turn around, WWE is telling you they're turning record profit. But that doesn't mean the wrestling business is booming. I'm not going to deliver that whole sermon again. I'm not going to preach every fact that I dished out again last night on that live stream. I won't do that. There's not enough time. We got things to do today. But what I will say is what we saw over the last 24 hours is proof that WWE making record revenue, that could stop on a dime, the drop of a hat, the blink of an eye, snap of a finger. And that's what happened when all these releases happened yesterday. And you see the news that Fox gave SmackDown Das Boot. They were not willing to meet them at the number that Nick Khan wanted. So they went over to the USA Network. Cable television does not outweigh broadcast television, right? We all know that. Your network Fox is not going to be beat by a cable station. It's not going to happen. So that with the releases, it shouldn't be that shocking that WWE under TKO Holdings now, being under the Endeavor umbrella, that's what they're trading at now. It's no longer WWE trading. It's TKO Holdings. And they are now trading at 0.83. Before all of these announcements and all of this news yesterday, early yesterday morning, they were trading at 104. 104. They are now trading at 0.83. That is a 20-point drop. Do your Steiner math. That's nearly a fifth of what they were trading at yesterday morning. What that means, let me just simplify this, right? For people that don't follow stocks or it just sounds like a bunch of numbers. What this means is WWE dropped a lot of money yesterday. The value of WWE, the value of the WWE mixing it up with UFC dropped tremendously. Now, can that go back up? Of course, and it will. It's a roller coaster. That's how stocks work. The fact that you can lose 20 or drop 20 points that seamlessly over a couple 2-3 stories, that is eye-opening. That's not a good sign. Especially when you just signed a new 5-year deal to be on cable on those Friday nights. And everybody that is invested in you or with you is thinking, uh-oh, that's not good. Well, then in turn, the situation isn't good. Now they're trading at a 0.83. That's the last I checked. 20 points, they lost a lot of money. Now, this goes into this next big story. That's why I wanted to set this story up with that story, because it merges together, right? So they're now sharing at 83. No longer. That 104 is like a distant memory right now. 83. And there's no signs that it's just going to jolt up anytime soon. So then you have these stories that come out about Vince McMahon and the SEC filing. I was asked about this in the live stream yesterday, and I said these are just more reports about what we already know. So I stayed pretty short on that answer yesterday in the live stream. But now that we have some time, this is telling. It's what we already knew, right? Vince McMahon has been positioning himself to make out with the most money imaginable when all of this is said and done. It's literally like this dude is going to be running away from a bank after just creating the biggest heist. The only difference is this is a company he created. He shouldn't have to be running away from anything. But the way he went around his business and about his business and all the loopholes that he's jumping through and all the people that he's stomping on to get to the top or where he needs to be, through all the controversies and the not so good things that this dude has done, to be able to be in a position that he is in, he knows he has been playing the ultimate game of chess and winning, beating everybody. He knows that he should be thanking his lucky stars that he's still in a position to cash out in the ultimate, most amplified of ways. Because this is a dude that easily could have and should have been out many, many moons ago with the way he conducted business. So, what am I talking about? Well, Vince McMahon, and this is the original article that kind of busted this open was Axios, however you want to pronounce it. They had a report, and it was stock-related, recent filings under the SEC. And this was by WWE and TKO Group Holdings. It noted that McMahon currently holds around 28.84 million TKO shares. That value's at about $3 billion, guys. Now, that was as of yesterday, though. I don't know if they're valuing that at the 104 that it was trading at. Because, again, that's why this matters. That original story we just went over, that's why this matters ultimately. Because if they're doing where we woke up all this morning at 104, which is what WWE was trading at, then Vince McMahon's 28.84 million shares is worth $3 billion. But now the stock is trading at 83. So is McMahon now only worth a little over $2 billion? Is that enough money to last 87 lifetimes? Of course, but I mean, that's almost a full $1 billion off. So to somebody like Vince, who's very, very greedy, that matters. That matters big time. So that affects the whole rest of this story. But let me just keep on going with it. Let's just assume that this was the 104 that WWE was trading at. And with Vince's 28.84 million TKO shares, he's valued at $3 billion if he wants to cash in. And that's where the next part of this story, this is the most interesting. TKO has registered all of McMahon's shares for sale. They have to be registered. And TKO registered all of them, obviously under the blessing, under the demands and commands, most likely, of Vincent Kennedy McMahon. So all of McMahon's shares are up for sale. And what this does, guys, obviously, is it enables McMahon to avoid the lockup period that is applied to all TKO stockholders, like Endeavor, Silver Lake, and many others. This allows McMahon to avoid the whole lockup period. He does not have to wait it out. And I'll give you the exact definition for those of you not familiar with the stock. I'll give you the exact definition of a lockup period involving stocks. The lockup period, also known as a lock-in or lock-out period, it refers to the predetermined time frame in which corporate insiders, investors, and employees are not allowed to sell or redeem their shares after an initial public offering or an IPO. So let me put that in simplistic terms. If you're in the if you're in the know, if you're in this whole thing, right? In this scenario, if you're in TKO, in any way, employee, investor, an insider, you cannot sell or redeem. Because, obviously, guys, you could be in the know of something that everybody else needs to be privy to. That's why they have this whole lockup period. It's put in place so that everybody is on an equal playing field, right? Because a couple two-tree investors, maybe a couple two-tree employees, and maybe one insider, maybe these 5 individuals know something. They should be telling everybody because it affects how everybody is going to trade. But if these 5 only know, they could make power moves while everybody else is in the fog. Nobody knows what's about to happen. They do, so they made some power moves and they made out like bandits. It's happened way before these lockup periods became a thing. So that's why they are a thing. So that's why you have these periods. So my point is, guys, I just wanted to set up what this means. This is, once again, Vince McMahon playing the ultimate game of chess. This guy, it's almost just like it's just fun for him just to like see how he can manipulate business. Because that's what he's doing. Every move he makes, this is not something you just think of like an hour before or over dinner. This is something where he's strategically playing business chess. And he's in a position right now that if shit hits the fan, if it gets too hot in the kitchen, you know, more paralegals come out and say X, Y, and Z. Vince did X, Y, and Z to me. Well, this dude can cash out. He doesn't even have the lockup period. He could literally get the entire $3 billion, guys, and make out like a bandit, even though he's under another investigation or these reports have come out. Or maybe Endeavor thinks he's too much of a liability and they want to cut ties. McMahon walks away. Or pretty much runs away like he just robbed the bank. He robbed his own company. Even after selling it and making billions, he made even more. So the whole point of this article and why everybody's talking about this is Vince McMahon leaving very soon? Like, did he get to this point? He's cashing out now. Well, we've been saying that's absolutely... There's a massive chance that that's happening. We think that Vince, he really wants to make this football thing work. And I still think it's very, very fishy that he hands the keys over to The Rock. The Rock buys XFL, and there's no articles of Vince saying anything about it. Everything was swept underneath the rug. Why Dwayne Johnson, of all people? Dwayne doesn't really comment about Vince. Vince doesn't say anything about Dwayne, but this was Vince's brainchild for the second time, the XFL. And then it's Nick Khan to broker all of these massive deals with WWE. Nick Khan, the childhood friend of The Rock. The Rock introduced Khan to Vince McMahon many years ago. Something is up with these three men. Again, it's business chess, and if you're not Nick Khan, Dwayne Johnson, and Vincent Kennedy McMahon, perhaps we'll never know. We could go an hour on this, I know. I'm just gonna cut it right there. I mean, Vince McMahon, it's just wild to see all of the steps that he has taken to get where he is at, and to think that somehow, when it's all said and done, he could literally walk away with all the cash. It's amazing, man. I mean, only Vincent Kennedy can have that string of luck. And again, it takes a lot of brilliance too, I understand, but man, it takes a lot of luck as well. So I just wanted to, it seems like a lot of numbers talk, a lot of talk about the stocks. Maybe originally you're just not that into that type of conversation. But I hope you guys understand why we're talking about it, right? Because Vince McMahon at any moment could literally leave WWE. I'm sure most of you guys would throw a party. But I'm just setting you guys up to where that would not be shocking. Like, there's a very good chance that any moment Vince McMahon could walk away. There's no question, because he has set himself up to cash out at any moment. So that's why these things need to be discussed on, a platform like this and a podcast like this. On top of that, I also wanted you guys to see that just when you think the wrestling business is booming just because WWE, this one company, is making a lot of money all the time, that does not mean that the wrestling business is booming. Tony Khan and AEW still cannot turn a legit profit. Tony Khan's the first person to tell you that. Impact Wrestling is barely hanging on. The local bingo hall can't even fill 30 seats on a Saturday night. The wrestling business is not booming, guys. The interest, the captivation from these shows, it's at maybe 10% what it was 10 years ago, much less 15, 20. It's not booming. You're not seeing as many wrestling shirts as you once did 20 years ago. You're not seeing the enthusiasm inside the arenas when everybody was carrying a sign. Literally everybody. That day you were so excited to get to the show. You're writing your signs. You're seeing where the camera angles are. You want to be on TV. You want to get loud. The whole place is riveting. The pyro is it's fucking outdoor fireworks. Like you're outdoor at Epcot at Disney World. But it was in the arena, cascading like grenades, imploding. The music was riveting. I say this all the time, man. That was the energy of these shows. Nowadays, they welcome us in and we see the same matches. I don't want to talk about it again. It's depressing. I understand. The wrestling business is not booming. That's why we go over these type of subjects. Because you need to see. You need to know exactly how it is. In just one day, you can drop over 20 points. You could be trading at 104. One day business is booming and the next day you're at an 80. What happens if that happens again? They're trading at 60, which is where WWE was 2 years ago. Now you're just going backwards. Now your numbers are going backwards just like the ratings have been for years, and your audience is dwindling just like they've been for years. Trust me, one day soon, WWE is going to stop reporting record revenue because people like Fox have already said, enough, we're not going to do it. And Saudi Arabia will soon have enough and say, okay, we're not going to give you another $100 million for you to bring your superstars over twice a year. So when the $100 million is up, $1 billion over here, the $1 billion from Fox, $1.5 billion, and when Comcast finally says, whoa, Raw is actually under 1 million viewers, Smackdown can't even get 1.5. You ain't getting another 1.3 from us. Then what? When NBC Universal Comcast doesn't give you $1 billion plus for your streaming PPVs or PLEs, it's eventually going to dry up. The well will dry up. And then WWE is going to go, whoa, we should have cashed out. And by then, you know what? Most likely all of them will not even be around. They will have already cashed out. Nick Khan will probably be gone. Paul Levesque McMahon will have cashed out. Vincent Kennedy would have been far gone. Don't be surprised if they all flee within the next year or two. All of the McMahons. That's why we go over these stories, man, because they need to be talked about. And this is the podcast where you're going to get that honest, in-depth discussion. Now, moving on to the flip side, man, we'll talk some AEW, man. They had on Wednesday night, a Dynamite that was a mini pay-per-view, basically. It's called Grand Slam. Now, usually Grand Slam brings them some decent numbers. Should it be better? Of course. But it brings them some decent numbers. One of their best Dynamite ratings of the year. This year, no different. They've been roughly in the 850s in the ratings. 850,000, 870, 880. Is where they've been the last several weeks and even months. This past week's Dynamite actually pulled 984,000 viewers. 984. It's conflicting with 987, but with the slight adjustment that I saw, it's saying 984. You can say 987 if you want to go with the initial report, but it's 3,000 viewers. The bottom line is just over 980,000 viewers for this week's Dynamite. Now, I know you're thinking, well, BC, they've been around 5 years. They still can't hit the million. That's not that great of a number. I understand. But when you can get past 950, that's big. If you've been watching, if you've been listening to this channel, you know why. Because we've said for the longest time, AEW has nestled into about 950,000 viewers as their new normal. That is their core audience. The majority of that, the top tier, 950,000. But over the last several months, 850 has become their new normal. A little bit more some weeks, a little bit less, but around 850. That tells us that even their core audience, their diehard, tried and true AEW fan base, is saying, no, thank you, these shows don't interest me anymore. 850 became their new normal. So to even see them at 950 in 1 week, to catapult nearly 100,000 viewers, from 870, 880 last week to 980 some odd this week. 100,000 viewer increase. That is a small victory for Tony Khan. You're going to take that. You're not going to look back. Don't pass go. Don't collect the $200. Just keep going. That's it, man. So I understand it's not the greatest number, but man, to see 950 again, I'm sure there was a time where Tony Khan was like, dude, how do I even get back to our old normal, which was 950? Well, you just did it. And you damn well, I know, almost only counts in hand grenades and horseshoes, but they almost cracked that million, man. They were about 10 to 15,000 viewers away from it. So that's the good news. Now, the bad news. The number is a steady decline in trend. And what I mean by that is what is called year-over-year numbers. So year-over-year, AEW is obviously losing viewers. We already know that, just like WWE Raw and so on. And SmackDown as well. But if you look at the last 3 Grand Slams, including this one, let's just go back to 2021's Grand Slam. 1.27 was their rating for Dynamite's Grand Slam. 1.27. 2021. 2022, 1 year later, 1.17. Ticked down. Now, you want to see growth, obviously, right? The longer you're around, you'd like to see growth if you're a pro wrestling company that has a nice cable contract, right? Like TBS, TNT, and you're on the air during prime time. The next year, you want to take that 1.27 and you want to see, hey, bare minimum, 137, right? 147 maybe. But to go down to 117, that's a little bit of a hit in the jaw. But you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you try it again in 2023 this year. Problem is, they went down again, this time to 0.987. So they didn't even clinch the million for this Grand Slam. So 1.27 to 1.17 and now 0.987. You guys see what I'm saying? It's even for Grand Slam, which is usually one of their biggest dynamites of the year. And it was again. But now they've dipped to where they can't even clinch a million on that show, which is a mini pay-per-view. So it's a bigger, we're not trying to rain on the parade. Take the 980 some-odd. I don't care if it's a million or not. That's a small victory right there in itself. So that's, listen, Tony put together a game plan, put together that event, and he cashed in on a pretty decent rating. Decent for what it is. Obviously, they should be well over 1.2 bare minimum. But I'm not going to rain on the parade. Take this number and look at it as a little victory. Now, when you're done celebrating a little bit, now you got to get back to work. How can we get these shows to get back to at least to 1.2? 1.2! Storylines, you guys know what I'm going to say. You don't need more WWE talent. You don't need to hire Ali and Dolph Ziggler and Riddick Moss and Rick Boogs and Edge and Emma and Aaliyah. Of course, you want to see them get employment. And of course, if you're talking about deserves, of course, Dolph deserves to work wherever he wants. Be cool to see Edge and Christian BC. Okay. Where are you putting all these dudes? You're going to sink your ship before it gets to shore. And right now, I'm looking at these numbers, and they have not yet made it to shore. The ship is just fucking going in circles in the sea. The ratings are all over the place. And in most cases, they're just going backwards. Collision and Rampage, don't get me started. Collectively, they can't even hit near 1 million. This is a concern, man. We gotta find a way where something like Grand Slam should be giving you 1.5. Your normal on Wednesday nights should be 1.2. There's no reason this show cannot be kicking Monday Night Raw's ass. Have you ever seen a Monday Night Raw show? It is some of the worst television you'll ever come across. If we didn't love this pro wrestling thing, if we didn't really love WWE because it's what most of us got started in wrestling with, WWE, so it's appointment television for us because we tune in out of habit and hope. Habit because we've been doing it since we were little kids, and hope, hoping it gets better one day. But that's why most of us tune into Monday Night Raw. If we didn't love it like we love it, we would have been gone long ago. There's no reason Wednesday night shouldn't be whooping Monday Night Raw's ass. Their very best is a 980 some-odd. And year over year, they keep losing viewers. At some point, you got to stop. Stop and just check yourself before you wreck yourself, is the old saying, right? Check yourself, see what you're doing wrong. Is it storylines? Right now, even AEW diehards, man, will tell you that a lot of the stories are just all over the place. Most of the time, they don't even make sense. Every single time, it's all over the place. You think one thing one week, and the next week, they're changing it up, and you don't even know if they realize they changed it up. So that's one of these stories there. The flip side as well is the bigger issue from Grand Slam is obviously the big botch. And first of all, the injury. We're hearing that Mox does just have a concussion. We hope for a speedy recovery, but not too speedy, right? You don't want him coming back too soon and it gets even worse. Sometimes these concussions, they can take a while. Some people, they don't react like you would think, and it actually bothers them for quite some time. Some people never get over a concussion. Look at Adam Cole. He'll tell you stories about his injury. Brian Danielson will tell you. So hopefully Mox is good from this, but the details that we're hearing, man, apparently he was knocked out in the first minute of the match, guys, taking the dive from Phoenix, and his head hit the concrete or something. And that's where the injury actually occurred, and he didn't tell anybody, and referee, what was his name? Rick Knox. Rick Knox didn't even notice. Phoenix didn't notice. So then apparently Mox calls an audible because he knows he's fucked up. Apparently Rick Knox doesn't hear the audible, or it doesn't register with this Rick Knox. So Phoenix hits his move, covers Mox, and all of a sudden the referee stops his count at 2. Just stops it. But Mox called the audible, knew he couldn't do anything else, couldn't take another move, so he wanted Phoenix to just get the title so he could get out of there. Rick Knox, guys, you can't expose the business like that. That's why WWE does the ref discretion rule, where the referee has to count to 3 if you're not going to make the count because you can't expose the business. AEW referees, the officiating in AEW has been one of the worst things about AEW since its inception. They have the worst officials. The worst officiating you will ever find in AEW or in pro wrestling is in AEW. The officials are obnoxious. They bounce around. What's that one? Bryce Reisenberg, Husenberg, whatever that Bryce name, or whoever that guy is. He just bounces around like he wants to be the center of attention in the match. Forget the wrestlers. Everybody look at little Bryce. They're in the corner during tag matches. They're not inflicting any rules. They're in there doing the Macarena in the corner, right? They're waving their arms around. They're saying a bunch of shit. Nobody's paying attention to them. They're not enforcing the rules or the laws. The referees in AEW absolutely tarnish anything that the wrestlers, the performers are trying to do. They're obnoxious. And much worse, they're not good at their jobs. They don't understand what being a referee in wrestling entails. They don't even understand the rules. And this is just another one. Rick Knox just holds his hand up at 2. He refuses to count. Nobody kicked their shoulder up, not even close. He just stops. He's like, wait, this isn't the finish. Shoot. What do you guys want to do now, man? And Mox is literally, you guys see the latest art? Mox is, you can see it. He's audibly yelling, fuck you, to the referee, Rick Knox. He's pissed. We're hearing he flipped out on the dude backstage. And I don't blame him. Because what happened is then Mox had to take the same move and get dropped on his dome piece again by Phoenix. And we heard that he got even more muffed up the second time around. He should have never had to been in that situation. Rick Knox needs to know, count to 3. On top of that, everybody's saying, AEW, there's the sloppy shop again, allowing wrestlers to wrestle injured. Now, I fully believe that Phoenix didn't know the extent of the injury, and I'll even stick up for Rick Knox, right? Nobody knows how you're feeling. You need to convey that much better. Nobody's going to just guess. Not even the referee at ringside. Who was it? Doc Samson? He didn't even know. I mean, that's not good when you cannot tell how somebody's bell has been rung. If you're watching the match, you could easily tell Mox's bell was rung. I don't know how the doctor couldn't tell, or Rick Knox in that match, but I'll stick up for them because not stick up, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But when Mox is calling the audible, then you know he shouldn't be taking any more moves. Count to 3 and get out. The second he calls the audible, the ref needs the black box and tell Gorilla. At least get the word over to Doc Samson. The second that bell hits, get in here. There's protocols. At least in WWE there is. You know, for years we called WWE a sloppy shop. Lately, man, AEW has to be very careful. The sloppiest shop I've ever seen has been coming from inside those walls. You know, I'm not going to pile down on the criticism of Tony Khan lets them get away with too much or takes too many risks. You know, Vince will tell you that he got where he is by being able to take those risks. So I'm not going to pile on Tony Khan. I'm glad that he takes risks. I'm glad that he gives talent a lot of wiggle room. It's everything we've been asking WWE to do for years before AEW was even around, right? Have some more flexibility in your promos, in your wrestling moves, what you can and can't do. Tony Khan allows a lot more freedom with that. I don't mind that at all. The problem is when they start injuring themselves left and right too often, and that is what is happening. I don't care if it's a 60 or 70-year-old Sting jumping or attempting to jump from an apron through a couple of tables and completely botching it and almost killing himself. I don't care if it's a legend like Sting or a current top star like Mox getting dropped on his dome piece when the whole match is them dropping each other on their dome pieces. I don't care if it's younger stars like Adam Cole fucking jumping off of a ramp because he's so amplified and breaking his ankle, or CM Punk jumping into the crowd because he's so amplified. Everybody needs to just relax and remember, you want to be able to make the next show. Don't do stupid things. Don't do stupid things that are not going to have a payoff that is worthy of the stupid thing you're doing, right? Always make sure you're making smart decisions, man, because stupidity will just win you the stupid prizes. Nobody is going to remember those stupid things. You did not need to jump into the crowd. You didn't have to jump off the ramp. You didn't have to have a whole match of getting dropped on your dome piece. You didn't have to jump from an apron through a table. You don't have to do these type of things. You don't have to dive off 40 feet on the upper deck into a flaming table with thumbtacks underneath. You don't need to do these things. MJF said it best. I don't have to put my body on the line. I just don't need to do that. I make you feel something every time I come through the curtain. You're a buzz. You make noise. There's a reception. Your eyes are open. Your jaws are dropped. You're in awe. I make you feel something. And MJF doesn't need to do all of that stuff. Roman Reigns, whether you like him or not, guy wrestles a handful of times a year now. Listen to the reaction this guy gets when he comes out. Edge, right? But that shouldn't surprise us. He's an Attitude Era guy. So they're always going to get a massive pop. But Edge, what does he do? A spear? Maybe his old ass pulls out a drop kick in his arsenal once in a while. All jokes, of course. Much love to Edge, but it's standard. If you think about the biggest pops in the industry over time and even still to this day, unless you're like a Mick Foley, it's all standard stuff. They just make you they have that it factor, and you just believe everything they talk about or do. There's a realism that just captivates you, and it's interesting and it's fun. It's fun. You actually want to tune in. You shouldn't have to just go through literal obstacle courses of thumbtacks and fire and tables and constantly up your game from a 450 to a 520 to a 670 to an 840 to a 950 splash. Where do you go from there? Mox does not need to bleed every single match. Mox does not need to blade every single match. Mox doesn't need match after match where he's getting dropped on his dome piece. I understand this is the type of matches that he loves, and he gets to have that freedom in AEW. And as much as I love Tony Khan allowing them that freedom, if this is going to continue and all of these injuries are going to stack up, and then you're going to botch like referee Rick Knox, who doesn't know what to do once an injury occurs, this sloppy shop is going to get too sloppy. And when something becomes too sloppy, you can't even clean it up. Right now, AEW is in a position where they still have time to clean this up. Is it a sloppy shop? Yes, guys. To a point, yes, it is. We called WWE a sloppy shop, and in some areas, it still is. You got to be fair. In this area, AEW has to clean up this shop. And I just caught this from Booker T on this same subject. Go figure. This literally just popped up on one of the dirt sheets. And it says from Booker T, and I quote, "You know, I said, I don't know, a few months back, I said that somebody was going to get hurt over there sooner or later. I'm not saying I wanted anybody to get hurt or anything like that, because injuries are a part of the business. But when you're putting yourself in harm's way for something like that to happen, I think they do that in AEW a lot more often than most. Or than normal." He says, somebody is going to get hurt sooner than later when doing that, and it's going to be significant, to the point where somebody is going to have to stop doing it. I think Jon Moxley said before this neck injury that he couldn't even move around before 12 noon. He says he has the arthritis of a 70-year-old man, and that was before getting dropped on his dome piece. What do you think he's going to feel like now? End quote by Booker T. I forgot all about the neck injury and when Mox did say that, you know, and how he still feels that. I mean, how do you think Renee Young, how do you think she feels when she can't even get Mox out of bed before 12? Or he can barely move around and sees a whole match getting dropped on his dome piece and a concussion to boot. And those concussions, man, they change you. They change your whole personality, everything about you over time. So I don't know. It's one of those things. You just got to be careful. We're not saying that AEW needs to just stop it, right? It's 2023. Nobody can take risk anymore, man. Everybody's soft. Nobody's saying that. Trust me. We're just saying, whoa, like, pick your moments and spots of when is it the most useful, right? I mean, this is being done left and right in the silliest of times and situations. It's not needed because the payoff is not nearly going to be what you think it's going to be. And to the point where these wrestlers know that and they're doing it anyway. I mean, even their own fellow wrestlers are going, whoa, hold up. Why? What is the need to do all this and put your whole body on the line all the time? That's not what wrestling's about. Relax. Be there for Renee and the kids. Anyway, guys, it's a subject that's out there right now too, man. Just the injuries that are stacking up in AEW and all the risks that they're taking. And is the risk worth the reward? And now we're starting to see, no, it's just not. Anyway, guys, that's what I got for you on today's podcast, man. It's been another great one. So glad I could put this out to you guys, man. It might get out to you guys a little bit later than normal, but hopefully you guys are able to catch it. Until next time, and there will be that next time. Smackdown tonight, the review within the next 24 hours. Top guys, we're out. BC saying check you. Peace.